Western culture, we tend to cut ourselves off from the deeper elements of our unconscious. We tend to learn by virtue of our self-image in the West that, in fact, we are just this rational self. And I know for myself that I had to delve through some limiting factors that had to do with my mother teaching me, you don't want to look deeper. You don't want to look into those deeper things. That's murky and evil, or there are things there you don't want to know that are damaging or bad. And I found that that's just absolutely not the case, that there's a great deal of depth and richness to our deeper selves if we go looking, and if we learn tools to bypass the superficial rational self to go looking deeper.
Well, I can see that, because I mean, when you go looking, the first thing you find is a space where there's no certainty, because it's not preordained, it's not preset. So in a way that your mind comes up against the edge of your memory, let's say, or the edge of your conditioning, and then you could say, okay, that's where the devil plays. I mean, that's what a lot of people say, that that's a dangerous territory, that you should know everything before you get there. It's kind of a boring way to look at it. But anyhow, so there's no personal discovery then. It all comes from the grandfathers and from the historical scriptures.
Right, and a lot of those same factors that you just mentioned constrict not only your view, but your willingness to go looking outside that view. In fact, that's probably the main drawback to, I'd say, any of the major religions, but let's say mostly the Western religions, is that it creates what I call a conceptual box. It not only precludes you looking outside of it, but it defines that very search, that inner search that is necessary to really come to see the depths of your own nature as evil and dangerous. And
so in a way, we're all radical, because we would have been burned at the stake probably, at a certain time.
Yes, my life would have already concluded, I'm suspecting, from some of the things I've said and written in earlier times. But that is the nature of our time. And Richard, from the wonderful people you've been interviewing and you've encountered, and you yourself for your own depth of understanding, that we're following through on a trend that probably goes back maybe 400 years. If not to the Greek philosophers 2,500 years ago, at least the time of Francis Bacon and René Descartes, who started to break away from the rigid interpretation that the church, in European terms, the church required of people up until 1600. Prior to that, if you questioned any of the standard solid beliefs of the church, wow, you were in big trouble. But from then on, thanks to the Galileos and the Keplers of the world and many others, even in a more mystical vein, who said what they thought and took their lumps, are we, consequently able to look and speak. And you and I can sit here and talk about anything, and we're not going to be crucified for it.
In a way, we can feel like we're going to walk out the door and everything's going to be all right. But in another way, I think this country is kind of limited or narrow, let's call it, as far as tolerating extreme views.
Well, it is in a way, and it isn't in a way, and it's really a fascinating topic to delve into. If you compare it to Europe, for example, where religion is really old hat, the big ancient cathedrals sit around as monuments to past thinking, and they're very, very liberal, forward thinking, and so forth. Compare that to a lot of the states where you have very conservative thinking through bands of the South and the West that don't want to tolerate anything but other than their own point of view. But you still have, I think the most recent polls have shown that 15% of the country no longer really believes in traditional religion. That the numbers are growing, that the old, particularly the old faiths, are dying away as more and more young people get exposed to new ideas and think, well, yeah, how does that fit into my religion? And a few still hang on to the old notions, the old thoughts that religion propounds. And others think, no, I'm going to look around. I'm going to shop around.
I don't see it as a trend, actually. I used to think that religion would, maybe just from my own self, I used to think that religion was kind of like taking a back seat, to science, let's say. And also metaphysical sciences and other kind of, new thoughts. And I'm not saying this in a bad way at all. I think the religion has its own power and potency, and also with the youth, and whether it's going to get a little bit more flexible and allow a little bit more room to move around and look around and discover God for yourself, and not just believe God, or believe Jesus, or believe whatever religion happens to be, but actually just to make that discovery. I think it's going to be a lot more important, because what you discover for yourself can never be shaken, can never be taken.